said that he was apparently not afraid of this demon due to the fact that she was very beautiful. These words made the demon very embarrassed, because for the last tens of thousands of years, no one had praised her for anything, especially for her beauty. Rui noticed how embarrassed the demon was, and he immediately began to ask her forgiveness for such unexpected words after that. Rui, a 15-year-old boy who still does not have any magical abilities, is often the victim of bullying from his friend Elena. Elena is Rui's friend, who mocks him in every possible way due to the fact that he does not have any magical skills. On this day, Elena mocks Rui just as usual. In this world, almost everyone has at least some kind of unique magical power, while Rui did not have any, which greatly upset him. In addition, Rui had problems not only with magic, but also with sports, which only upset him even more. Unlike Rui, Elena learned to use magic at the age of 3. As she grew older, Elena's magical skills increased. In addition, Rui was even more upset not only by Elena's superiority, but also by the fact that she would never be able to understand all his pain. Elena also trained Rui in magic, hoping that sooner or later he would also be able to gain some kind of magical power. However, Rui was not very happy with the fact that it was Elena who trained him, which the girl did not enjoy. At one point, Rui simply cannot withstand all the pressure that constantly surrounds him. Then he tells Elena that today he wants to practice magic on his own. Elena was surprised by this decision, and she begins a row with Rui, in which she told him that people like him could never learn magic alone, thereby trying to provoke Rui into fighting her. At one point, Elena cannot stand it and tells Rui that since he is unable to use even the simplest magic, then he is simply the same pathetic loser as his dead parents. These words deeply touched Rui's soul, since his parents died a long time ago, when Rui was still very young. Then Rui, not holding back all his anger at Elena, tells her that from now on he will no longer date her. Elena could not believe what she heard, which left her simply at a loss. Rui said that he did not even see Helen as a friend, as he was very annoyed by her arrogant behavior. With these words, Rui ran away from Elena towards the forest, while Elena herself could not believe all of the above. After such an unpleasant conversation, Rui was able to reach the forest after some time, where he decided to start training in magic. In preparation for using the spell, Rui attempts to use wind magic. However, Rui, as before, did not succeed, which made him extremely disappointed with himself. Rui was still haunted by what Elena said about his parents. A little later, Rui pulls himself together and continues to try to summon wind magic. After several attempts, Rui again began to think that, as usual, he was not succeeding. Rui also noticed that recently there has been a different atmosphere in the forest. Rui thinks that the atmosphere in the forest has become different because of the monsters that may live in this forest, and he decides to leave the forest as soon as possible. As Rui began to leave, he saw a very strange shining hole in the ground, from which came very strong magic that even he could feel. Rui decides to go back and tell everyone else about the pit, but due to carelessness, he falls into this very pit. After falling, Rui briefly lost consciousness, and a few minutes later he wakes up and sees that he is in some strange place in which, at first glance, there was nothing. After Rui woke up, he began to remember everything that happened to him before he got here. While Rui was thinking, a beautiful and busty woman in a black revealing robe appeared behind him. Rui was very confused at the sight of the woman, because he had never met such beautiful women in his life. Taking a closer look, Rui notices small horns on the woman's head, believing her to be a demon. Rui read in a book that demons are extremely cruel and treacherous creatures that can control very powerful magic. The beautiful woman confirmed Rui's guesses, telling him that he immediately guessed that she was a demon. Out of confusion, Rui somewhat awkwardly introduced himself to the demon and said that this was the first time he had seen such a demon. The demon was very surprised by Rui's courage, despite the fact that in his village, the elders told the children about demons, that they are very dangerous for people. Despite this, Rui said that he was apparently not afraid of this demon due to the fact that she was very beautiful. These words made the demon very embarrassed, because for the last tens of thousands of years, no one had praised her for anything, especially for her beauty. Rui noticed how embarrassed the demon was, and he immediately began to ask her forgiveness for such unexpected words. After that, another girl appeared behind Rui, who was smaller and had tan skin, and she also had a long, scaly tail and wings. Rui greeted the girl, which she did not like, but she was surprised by his courage. After this, the girl introduces herself as the seventh Dragon Queen. After hearing this, Rui was very worried, since dragons were considered the most powerful race in the world. The girl was pleased with the way she introduced herself to Rui, thereby greatly surprising him. After this, the girl asked Rui if he knew who this demon was. After hearing this, the demon remembers that she never introduced herself to Rui. The woman then introduced herself as Destarosa, the 66th demon queen who rules over all the darkness and chaos of this world. After this, Rui was extremely frightened and greatly amazed by what he heard at the same time. However, Rui never fully understood whether they could really be the demon queen and the dragon queen. Destarosa thought that Rui didn't see her as a demon queen just because he thought she was beautiful, while the dragon queen didn't understand how Destarosa was so easily embarrassed by his compliments. After that, they started having a small quarrel, looking at which Rui thought that they both got along well with each other and were probably even friends. During this quarrel, they both decide to reincarnate and show Rui their true appearance. During the transformation process, Destarosa's clothes were torn almost completely. Meanwhile, the Dragon Queen's outfit completely disappeared, and a hard, scaly layer began to appear in some places. At this time, Rui felt an extremely powerful flow of magical energy that he had never felt before. After the reincarnation, the Dragon Queen turned into a huge and formidable dragon, and Destarosa acquired a new, even more revealing outfit than she had before. After that, Rui was completely convinced that there was a demon queen and a dragon queen in front of him. Rui remembered a legend in which a long time ago there lived a hero who had talents in magic, swordsmanship, and a good-natured character. One day, this hero rid the world of the Dragon Queen and the Demon Queen, thereby saving people from their atrocities, after which he himself disappeared. Then Rui realized that these were the same Dragon Queen and Demon Queen that this hero imprisoned here. However, Rui did not understand why they were not defeated, but only imprisoned here. He then assumed that the Dragon Queen and the Demon Queen were so strong that he could not completely defeat them, but only trapped them in this empty space. Then he thought that they might know how they could get out of here, and he decides to ask them about it. After asking Rui, Destarosa tells him that it is simply impossible to get out of here. Then Rui was in despair that he would spend the rest of his life here. The Dragon Queen only added that if they knew how to get out of here, they would no longer be here. After this, the Dragon Queen decides to show Rui her seal, which appeared on her when she ended up here. The Dragon Queen said that this seal was placed on them by the hero, who left them here in captivity for many years. She also added that it was because of this seal that their souls are now closely connected with this place. Then Rui began to look for the seal on his body, and as it turned out, he did not have such a seal. Then Destarosa began to undress Rui to try to find the seal of imprisonment on him. As it turned out, Rui really didn't have any seal, and no one knew why exactly he didn't have a seal. Then Rui said that he got here after he fell into some strange hole in the ground. Destarosa thought that he had ended up here due to some strange accident. Destarosa also suggested that he could still get out of here. Hearing this, Rui said that he was ready to do anything to leave this strange place. Hearing this, the Dragon Queen and Demon Queen were surprised by Rui's big promises. Rui, in turn, did not fully understand what exactly they wanted from him. Then Destarosa said that Rui could make a hole in this place through which he could escape. Then Rui said that he could not use magic on his own, and thus he could not make a hole in this space. Destarosa told Rui that he couldn't not use magic at all. Then Destarosa invites Rui to train him in order to increase his magical powers. For better understanding, Destarosa explained to Rui that magic is like a muscle, and the more he uses it, the stronger it becomes. But despite this, if he overdoes his efforts, then his magic can completely run out, and then he can die from it. Destarosa also added that for the most effective training, he will have to bring his condition almost to death as often as possible. Destarosa said that 500 years of training would be enough for Rui, which greatly shocked him, thinking that he simply would not survive. Then the Dragon Queen told Rui that time moves differently here, and that here 1 year is equal to 1 day on Earth. Then if Rui spends 500 years in this space, then only 500 days will pass on Earth. The Dragon Queen said that if they trained him, he could get out of here. Rui thought that they would not help him just like that. And then they said that in return he would help them get out, and he could not refuse such an outcome of events. The next day, Destarosa began training Rui, which he was very grateful for. Destarosa reminded Rui that it would take him 500 years to master all of his most powerful magic techniques. Rui wanted to know if time really moves in this place, as the Dragon Queen said. Destarosa said that this was true, and that she had once tested it herself using magic. Then Rui remembered the elder in the village who took care of him when his parents died. He thought that the elder there would worry about him, and that after all this training, he would definitely return to him. He told Destarosa that he would try his best to get out of here as soon as possible. After saying this, she pats Rui on the head, thereby praising his efforts. Rui remembered how before his mother died, he also stroked his head, which made Rui feel a pleasant, warm feeling that he had not felt for a very long time. However, Destarosa asked for forgiveness if he did die here, which caused Rui's emotional mood to suddenly change to a more depressive one. During his training with Destarosa, Rui practiced his magical skills for a long time. From such training, Rui crawled to the Dragon Queen completely exhausted. The Dragon Queen realized from Rui's exhausted state that Destarosa was training him very well. Before Rui had time to regain his strength, the Dragon Queen was ready to train him. The Dragon Queen said that she would train Rui not in magic, but in a special Qigong technique. The Qigong technique was unique in that it fully revealed the full potential of any magician. There were very few people in the human world who used the Qigong technique, but this technique was not inferior to ordinary magic in power. The Dragon Queen told Rui that if he mastered this technique, he could easily defeat even a dragon. The study of Qigong technique is based on 9 exercises, which are divided into attack and defense exercises. Any person who can learn all the exercises will be able to overcome any difficulties along the way. Rui didn't understand why no one used such powerful magic. The Dragon Queen explained that this technique is very difficult to master. She also explained that in recent years, it has become much easier for people to use magic and that everyone can easily use basic magic, while the Qigong technique needs to be studied diligently for years. This didn't scare Rui much, since for him, training in the Qigong technique should be as difficult as training in ordinary magic. The Dragon Queen also added that to learn the Qigong technique, a person does not need any talent, and all training was based only on painstaking study. Rui said that he will try his best, and he can't wait to start training. However, the Dragon Queen did not mention that Rui must memorize everything he will study. After the explanation, Destarosa appeared to them and said that the training program would change every week. The Dragon Queen thought that Rui should learn Qigong before Destarosa had time to teach him how to use magic. 10 years after Rui ended up in the endless hell, his magic skills became much stronger. Destarosa was satisfied with the results of her training, but she also understood that Rui needed to continue training. Destarosa noticed all of Rui's progress and saw how he became a real magician. Destarosa was also surprised by how Rui, during all her continuous training, never showed his fatigue. At the end of the training, Destarosa told Rui that he had enough for today, but Rui argued that he could still continue, despite the almost complete lack of magical energy in him. Rui also said that he tried very hard in training and that he cannot just take it and start resting. Destarosa thought that Rui had an unhealthy desire to master magical skills. Then she decides to tell him that he is trying very hard to prove himself in all her training sessions. She also added that despite how weak a magician he was in his world, all his efforts bring him results. After this, Destarosa decides to transfer some of her magical power to Rui through her magic channel. She explained to him that magicians like him have very little magical power, and therefore she could transfer very little magical energy to him. She also explained that if he did not use this magic, his magical power would weaken, and over time he would not be able to use his magic at all, which scared Rui very much. After this, Destarosa began the process of transferring magical energy to Rui. While she was transferring some of her magical energy to him, she noticed that during all the time of his training, Rui's magical channels had become more stretched compared to other people. After transferring the magical energy, Destarosa kept telling Rui that with every training he and his magic were becoming stronger. At first, such words from Destarosa touched Rui very much, since no one had previously praised him as much as now. A little later, he calmed down and told Destarosa that he was very pleased to hear such warm words of support. Rui also said that he was very glad that he came to this place and ended up with them, affectionately calling Destarosa little sister. She was incredibly embarrassed by what Rui called her, causing her to faint. At first, Rui became very worried about Destarosa, but the Dragon Queen told him that she was just crazy and that she would come to her senses soon. After what she saw, the Dragon Queen told Rui to rest before training with her. During training, Rui was able to do 100 push-ups with a very heavy stone on his back. After this, the Dragon Queen told Rui to rest before the next exercise. She was pleasantly surprised at how the first visible results of her training began to appear. She also drew attention to how, after 10 years of training, Rui was able to master the Qigong technique. While she was thinking about Rui's abilities, she noticed how he, hiding from her, continued to do push-ups, which she did not like very much. She was very unhappy with this behavior, telling Rui that he should never overexert himself. Rui said that because he was extremely weak in his world, he should train as much as possible. The Dragon Queen kept telling him that this was all nonsense, and that his physique was more than strong and resilient, which Rui simply did not believe. He said that he was the weakest and slowest in his world, and that the Dragon Queen would not be able to understand him because she was very strong. The Queen draconically realized that Rui was a child with complexes and that she needed to somehow fix it. She then tells Rui that thanks to his efforts, his physique is getting stronger with every workout. She explained to him that he considered himself weak only because he simply did not know before how effectively he could use his body. She also drew his attention to the fact that his body has very efficient regeneration, and that he should be grateful to nature for the fact that he was born so strong. Rui was very touched by the Dragon Queen's words about his unique physique. After this, he decides to ask the Dragon Queen about what her parents were like. She replied that her parents died when she was very young, and that she did not even remember their faces. After this question, Rui began to feel somewhat awkward after his question, thinking that she was uncomfortable remembering it. But instead, the Dragon Queen just grinned and told Rui not to think about it, and that she also had a strong body, which she received after birth. After that, Rui could not contain his emotions and rushed into the arms of the Dragon Queen, thinking to himself that they had a lot in common. She didn't fully understand what exactly was going on, to which Rui replied that she was trying very hard too. After that, the Dragon Queen realized what exactly was going on, and after a short hug, she began to calm him down. After this, Rui felt better and said that at one time the Dragon Queen was the same as he was before, and that he would no longer whine. At this time, Destarosa had already managed to come to her senses, and she understood that everything had worked out for them with each other. In the 100th year of his stay in the endless hell, Rui became much stronger, and he could even use some magical techniques. He wanted to show the Dragon Queen his results, and he called her as Rio. Then she remembered how Rui once asked her if she had a name. Before, when she terrified people, everyone knew her as the Dragon Queen, and no one saw her as an individual. And after hearing this, he decided to address her as Rio. Rui distracted Rio from his thoughts, and he wanted to know if his magic had gotten better. Rio said that his magical skills have become much stronger compared to those he demonstrated in previous training. After this, Rio began to praise Rui for being able to master half of all offensive and defensive Qigong techniques in just 100 years. Rui later told Rio that every time she touches him, his heart starts beating faster every time. Rio was shocked by what she heard, while Rui continued to say that her skin was very soft and that it smelled very good. Rui still couldn't stop complimenting Rio, which made her feel more and more embarrassed. After that, she began to beat Rui for what he had just said to her, considering him a pervert. Rui didn't understand what exactly he said about her, thinking that he said too much. At this time, Rio, while still thinking about what Rui had just said to her, was also thinking about how much he embarrassed her. At that moment, Destarosa approached them so that she could discuss some issues with Rio regarding further training. Rui then decides to leave Destarosa with Rio and continue training away from them. Destarosa pointed out to Rio how they had become friends with each other during their training. She reminded Rio of how before Rui was here, they would constantly fight each other to the death. Then, they both realized how much had changed in the endless hell since Rui's appearance. Then Destarosa thought about how everything had become so fun for them from that moment on. After this, Rui decides to turn to Destarosa with a question about his magical abilities. However, instead of listening to Rui, she tells him not to call her by her name anymore. Rui then tries to remember how he should address Destarosa. And when he remembered, he addressed her as little sister, which almost made Destarosa faint. After that, Destarosa attacked Rui with open arms. After this, Rui and Destarosa begin training, in which Rui shows her his abilities in using his fire magic skills. Destarosa was very pleased with how after 100 years in endless hell, his skills had become so strong. However, despite such a rapid growth in abilities, their moment of separation is getting closer and closer. At this moment, Rui runs up to her so that he can find out if she is happy with his abilities. But when Rui ran up to Destarosa, he noticed that she began to cry. Rui was very upset because his little sister suddenly started crying. Destarosa, in turn, still crying, hugged Rui tightly to her, telling him that she was crying precisely because of him. Destarosa, not holding back her emotions, promised herself that she would definitely return him to her world, even if they never saw each other again. Over 300 years in endless hell, Rui was able to learn to use Dark Flame, one of the most complex and powerful spells. Destarosa and Rio were pleased that Rui was able to master magic that only high-ranking demons could use. Destarosa explained that she transferred some of her magical energy to Rui through magical channels from time to time, so that he could use his magical skills more effectively. She was extremely pleased with how quickly Rui was able to master such complex spells. Rio said that Rui was also making great progress in her training and that he had mastered all the Qigong skills. After the training, Destarosa and Rio once again praised Rui for his efforts and determination. After training, Rui commented that it was already late and that it was time for them all to go to bed, which Destarosa and Rio agreed with. A second later, Rui fell to the ground from an unpleasant pain in the chest area, and Destarosa and Rio immediately tried to find out what happened to him. When they removed his outer clothing, they noticed a barely visible gray military mark on him. Rui was scared, while Destarosa and Rio were happy for him, because such a mark appears only on professional warriors. Then Rui calmed down and wanted to find out if Destarosa and Rio had similar marks. Destarosa then slightly removed some of her clothing so that Rui could see her mark. She said that it depicted a royal mark, which was higher in status than a military mark, and it showed that the owner of such a mark was worthy of the royal title. Rio also showed her mark on her palm, which signified her membership in the royal family. Then Rui decides to find out what exactly is written on his military mark. Destarosa and Rio read the contents of the mark, and it said that Rui is a warrior of demons and dragons. From what she heard, Destarosa was overjoyed and proud of Rui, and she immediately began to hug him tightly. However, Rio said that this mark is not finished, and it needs to turn silver to be complete. Rui felt that in order to complete it, he had to train more and harder. However, Rio said that his current body has reached the limit of what it should be at his age. In the endless hell, no one ages, and therefore Rui's body does not grow, due to which he will not be able to overcome his threshold of the maximum power of his magical skills. And the only way to overcome this threshold is to get out of the endless hell. Destarosa tells Rui that his skills are now more than enough for him to escape the endless hell. Then Rui decides to rest today, and tomorrow he will try to get out. A little later, Rui returns to the small house in which he lived to rest and gain strength throughout all these 300 years of training. In a dream, Rui accidentally grabs something very large, soft and pleasant to the touch. When he woke up, he saw Destarosa in front of him in her underwear, whom he had been holding by the chest all this time. Destarosa was pleasantly surprised that Rui immediately decided to grab onto her. This sight frightened Rui very much, and he did not understand what was happening now. After that, Rio, who was also in her underwear, attacked Ruya. Rui was still confused by the appearance of Destarosa and Rio, and he still didn't understand what exactly they wanted to do with him. Destarosa then explained to him that since he would be leaving them tomorrow, he and Rio had to say goodbye somehow. Rio said that their power and knowledge is not all they can give to Rui. Then they told Rui that they could also give him his first time. After that, Destarosa immediately kissed Rui, which made him very excited. After the kiss, Destarosa couldn't stop telling Rui how much she loved him. After Destarosa, Rio also began to kiss Rui, thereby showing all her affection for him. After the kiss, Destarosa noticed how embarrassed Rio was, which she, in turn, denied. After this, another quarrel began between Destarosa and Rio, in which they began to make excuses for the fact that this was happening to them for the first time. Rui could only silently watch their quarrel from the sidelines. After that, Destarosa stopped quarreling, and they were both ready to attack the defenseless Rui. Rui was very confused and frightened by the situation in which he unwittingly found himself. However, Destarosa and Rio could no longer be stopped, and they were ready to continue their pleasures with Rui. The next day, Destarosa and Rio explained to Rui what he needed to get out of the endless hell. Rui just looked at Destarosa and Rio and thought about the day he ended up here. He could not forget those very first training sessions, which tortured him half to death. He couldn't forget those moments with Destarosa and Rio when he had so much fun with them. Rui understood that these days of his life had come to an end, and that today he would return home. After this, Rui began to prepare one of his spells, which would create a hole in space through which he would return home. Before Rui creates the portal, Rio interrupts his spell to give him something important. Rio gives Rui his dragon fang earring so that he can use it to create a hole in space. Rio tells Rui to take her earring and channel all his magical power into her. Ryu took Rio's earring, directed his magical power into it, and instead of the earring, he ended up with a dragon sword in his hands. Rui was surprised by how strong the magical power was coming from his sword. Rio informed Rui that this was not an ordinary sword, but a relic of his father, which was made from his fangs. She also added that there are only 2 such swords in the entire world, and she gives one such sword to Rui as a memory of them. Rui wanted to say that he cannot accept such a gift from Rio, but she does not listen and interrupts him. Rio continued to say that she was giving this relic to him for a reason, and that he should fully understand this if he did not want to accept it. Rui then changes his mind and decides to accept the sword, promising Rio that he will treasure it. Rio was happy with Rui's decision, after which she explains to him how to properly use this sword. A few minutes later, Rui was ready to use the sword to cut the space between the human world and the endless hell. Rui began to concentrate all his magical power on the sword, after which he makes a strong and confident swing. After his impact, a large crack appeared in the air, from which a bright light came. While the crack was growing and getting larger, Rui had already begun to say goodbye to Destarosa and Rio, not holding back his emotions. Before Rui leaves them, the 3 of them begin to hug each other. Destarosa wished Rui a good journey and to be careful when returning to his world. Rio wished Rui good luck and told him that they would always wait for his return. Ryu could not believe that this was the end, and that after passing through the crack, he would finally find himself in his world. He also thought that he would definitely free them from endless hell in order to continue living with them. Before returning to his world, he told Destarosa and Rio that he would definitely free them from here. Destarosa and Rio just looked after Rui, who was already leaving them. A second later, Rui walked through the crack, after which it closed, letting Destarosa know that Rui had left them. Rio told Destarosa that they were now alone in an endless hell for the first time in 300 years. Then Destarosa grabbed Rio and began to cry loudly, which Rio did not expect from her at all. Destarosa couldn't stop talking about how much she was already jumping around the Rui. Rio then began to try to calm her down, thinking to herself that she had never done this before. Rio never ceased to be amazed that the Demon Queen was capable of such emotions. When Destarosa calmed down a little, she decided to ask Rio if she missed Rui. Rio said that she believes in Rui and that she doesn't feel as lonely as she did before they had Rui. After what Rio said, Destarosa's emotions got the better of her again, and then she began to squeeze Rio, calling her cutie. Then Destarosa told Rio that if she felt lonely, then they urgently needed to hug. After that, Destarosa began to tightly hug Rio, who tried to fight her off in every possible way. Rio increasingly wanted Rui to return to them as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Rui was between dimensions through which he must get to his world. Rui also really missed Destarosa and Rio, whom he won't be seeing for a while. However, he pulls himself together and thinks that he will definitely save them. A little later, he finds another crack that should move Rui to his world. Then Rui takes out his sword, which Rio gave him, and hits the crack with it to make it bigger. When he widened the crack and went through it, he found himself in the same forest in which he found a hole in the ground, through which he fell into an endless hell. It was only seconds later that Rui finally realized that he was finally home. Rui's happiness simply knew no bounds, and he decided not to hesitate and return to his native village. However, during his stay in endless hell, he managed to forget the way home. At first, Rui wanted to get onto the tree and look around, but as soon as Rui jumped, he found himself at a very high altitude. From such a height, Rui was able to look around and see the sea and his native village nearby. As soon as Rui saw all this beauty, he realized what a small world he had lived in before. At first, Rui thought about how he could save Destarosa and Rio, but he was not entirely sure that he would succeed. Then Rui plans to return to his home first, to be sure that nothing has changed there since his disappearance. After arriving home, Rui packed some things and was going to go to a very important place for him. This place turned out to be a large stone, on the site of which Roya's mother and father were buried. Rui apologized for his absence for so long and said that next time he would introduce Destarosa and Rio to them. At that moment, an elder appeared behind Rui, who raised Rui and looked after him after the death of his parents. The elders wanted to know from Rui where he had been all this time, to which Rui said that it was too long a story. Rui apologized to the elder for being gone for so long, and he was very happy to see the elder. Then the elder invites Rui to go to him to give him something warm. Rui created a large fireball and told the elder that he must go. The elder was shocked that Rui could create such a fireball so easily. Rui said that he is fine and that he is not as weak as before. The elder saw unprecedented confidence in his abilities in Rui's eyes, and he also said that he would look after Rui's house. Rui thanked the elder for his concern, after which he went on about his business. While Rui was walking, Elena noticed him and immediately began telling Rui about how angry she was with him. Elena thought that since Rui had returned, he wanted to make peace with her. Rui told Elena that her arrogance had not changed at all during the time he was gone, and that she should finally grow up. Elena was in deep shock from what Rui told her, since before his disappearance, he had not behaved so boldly with her. Elena, in a fit of rage, immediately decided that Rui should answer for his words, and she was already preparing to strike Rui. However, contrary to all Elena's expectations, Rui manages to repel her attack without receiving a scratch. Elena was perplexed by how Rui was able to stop one of her most powerful moves. Rui told Elena that she couldn't see anyone around her, and that she couldn't see how people around her were getting stronger, while her skills remained the same. Then Elena only gets angrier, and she again tries to inflict at least some damage on Rui. However, despite her fast attacks, Rui still manages to dodge each of her blows. After this, Rui decides to use one of the techniques of the Qigong technique, during which he delivers a powerful kick to Elena right in the face. After such a strong blow, Elena fell to the ground, but even after it, she did not stop commanding Rui, telling him to pick her up. Instead, Rui just says goodbye to Elena, telling her not to get in other people's way anymore. Elena still did not stop shouting after Rui that sooner or later she would still be with him. On the way, Rui remembers a conversation with Destarosa and Rio, in which they discussed a plan on how Rui could rescue them from the endless hell. Destarosa suggested that the first thing to do would be to find some information about the hero who imprisoned them, since only he knows how to remove the seals from them. Rui suggested that this hero must have already died, but Rio said that his relatives or his family might also know how to free them from here. Then Rui decides that when he returns home, he will have to find the hero's grandchildren. Along the way, Rui decides to first find out about the hero's grandchildren from people in Escadoria, the capital of the continent. However, Rui did not know which direction the capital was located, and he decided to find a large accumulation of magic. The technique of searching for magic is more often used by demons, while people need to have a lot of magical energy to master this technique. Rui then concentrates all his power on using this magic to find large concentrations of magic that may be coming from the capital. After using it, Rui finds a large accumulation of magic, thinking that the capital is located in that direction. After Rui discovered the approximate location of the capital, he decides to use flying jump, one of the Qigong techniques that allows him to develop very high speed. Rui only jumped forward slightly, and he was already able to cover a very long distance in a matter of seconds. After several such intense jumps, Rui decided to take a short break. But when Rui stopped, he noticed a large line in front of him, which was moving towards the entrance to the capital. Rui was a little worried because he had never been to the capital before, and he didn't know what to expect. Finally, it was Rui's turn, and one knight demanded that Rui show his migration card. The knight realized that Rui did not have any migration card, and he demanded that Rui leave the queue. Rui was confused because no one had told him before that he should have some kind of migration card. Rui began to worry more and more every second while trying to somehow get out of the situation. The knight believed that Rui was going to enter the Magic Academy, but Rui did not fully understand what the knight was telling him. Then the knight told Rui to hurry up, since the entrance exam to the academy would begin very soon. Then the knight let Rui into the capital and wished him good luck in his exams. Rui was happy, and at the same time, he also did not understand why that knight still let him through. Rui was in the capital for the first time in his life, and he was simply amazed at how beautiful everything was in it. Rui heard from adults that there were a lot of people living in the capital, but there were many more of them than he thought. Rui went to one of the signs so that he could familiarize himself with some of the capital's places. To the right of the sign, Rui saw a shopping area where people were selling various things in the morning. To the left was the very academy that the knight had told him about. Rui always dreamed of getting into this academy and studying there, but now he had no time for that. At first, Rui wanted to find out something about the hero's relatives in the bar, because you can always find various useful information there. But since he was still a child, he would have been quickly kicked out of there. Then Rui thinks of going to the guild, where he can get the opportunity to earn money by completing various orders, and he can also get a migration card with which he can travel to other cities and countries. After some deliberation, Rui decides to join the guild and become an adventurer. Then an old, angry woman appeared near Rui, who believed that Rui had gotten lost on the way to the academy. Then the woman grabbed Rui and forcefully dragged him towards the academy. On the way, the woman told Rui that the academy was made to directly compete with the empire, which was becoming larger and larger every year. She also told Rui that he would have no problem passing the exam at the academy without presenting any documents. A few minutes later, they reached the very academy where entrance exams are now being held. Rui already understood that he was now in a hopeless situation, and now he had no choice but to go to the exam. On the other hand, Rui was not at all upset that he was able to get here. After that, Rui walked up to the counter, behind which was one of the teachers who was receiving new students. In the distance, Rui noticed targets floating in the air, where new students showed off their magic skills. One of the teachers told Rui that he needed to show his magical skills, where he could use absolutely any magic. Rui noticed that one girl was completely unable to hit targets with her magical abilities. Rui felt sincerely sorry for her, while the rest of the applicants laughed at her and said that she was completely inept. The next one to show off his magical skills was Rui. At first, Rui wasn't going to show his full power, but he decided to show everyone what he learned from Destarosa and Rio. At this time, the others did not understand who it was and from which village he came here. The teacher gives Rui the command to start, and Rui created a huge fireball that should destroy all the targets at once. The others were shocked by what they saw and did not understand how Rui was able to use such powerful magic. After Rui used the magic, a large gap appeared on the ground, from which a lot of smoke came out. While the others were scared by such magic, Rui was more than pleased with his result. Rui decides to ask the teacher if he managed it, but the teacher at that moment was lying on the ground unconscious. Then Rui decides to ask another teacher if he will be accepted with such skills, to which the teacher fearfully replied that he might be accepted, after which Rui was sent to the next exam. Rui was very embarrassed by the interest with which people around him were talking about him. At that moment, Yuri, one of those who also decided to enter the academy, decided to turn to Rui. Rui didn't understand what a handsome guy like Yuri wanted to know from a country boy like him. Rui greeted Yuri and said that he was very glad to meet them, to which Yuri reciprocated. After meeting each other, Yuri decides to immediately start communicating with Rui on Thai, since everyone here was absolutely the same. Rui was very surprised by Yuri's expressive smile, thinking to himself that girls were constantly running after Yuri. Yuri drew Rui's attention to how many unusual new students were entering the academy this year. Yuri also told Rui that he thought she would be the best among the new students, although Rui did not quite understand who Yuri was talking about. Rui decides to ask Yuri who exactly he is talking about, telling him that he only recently entered the academy. At first, Yuri thought a little, but a little later, he and Rui returned to the topic of conversation. Rui wants to know from Yuri how strong she is, to which Yuri replies that she is the granddaughter of that same hero. Rui was shocked by what he heard, since he did not at all expect that the granddaughter of the hero himself would study here. Then Rui decides to ask Yuri what she looks like, which at first surprised him very much. Almost immediately, the hero's granddaughter happened to be near Rui and Yuri. As soon as she appeared, she immediately asked Rui if he was the same new student that everyone was talking about now. When Rui told the hero's granddaughter that it was him, she told him that he looked extremely pathetic. Then Yuri decides to intervene in the matter, telling her that she has no need to insult Rui. After this, Yuri introduces Rui to Charlotte Eudalia, the granddaughter of the legendary hero. Rui immediately recalls moments in his life when he admired the hero and his actions. He also thought that the Queen of Demons and the Queen of Dragons were not at all as evil as they were described in legends, but very kind creatures. Eudalia interrupted Rui's thoughts and told him that she would not let some boy just take her place at the academy. Then Yuri tells Eudalia that all the exams are already over and that there is no way to change the situation. Then Eudalia puts her hand into her chest and pulls out a white glove. After she takes out the glove, she throws the glove towards Rui and challenges him to a duel. Everyone around was in unprecedented shock that the granddaughter of the legendary hero was challenging a simple village boy. Eudalia tells Rui that if she defeats him, he will refuse to continue entering the academy. If Rui still manages to defeat Eudalia, then she will become his personal slave. Yuri tried with all his might to dissuade Rui from accepting the challenge, because it would be a completely irrational decision. On the one hand, Rui thought that he did not need a slave at all, but on the other hand, he had the opportunity to learn something about the hero from Eudelia. Despite persuasion from others, Rui raises his glove and thereby accepts Eudelia's challenge to participate in a duel. A few minutes later, Rui and Eudelia were ready to begin the battle, while the rest of the students watched the whole thing. Regis, one of the teachers at the academy, was very worried about the duel, because if there were casualties among the students, he could suffer heavy punishment. Then Yuri reassured the teacher, telling him that he took full responsibility upon himself, because he knew that deep down the teacher also wanted to know what Rui was like. However, Yuri said that the teacher should also judge everything, which at first did not suit him very much. After this, Regis comes out and dictates the rules of the duel, in which the winner will be the one whose opponent loses consciousness or surrenders on his own. The teacher also added that he could end the fight himself, if he considered that one of the opponents was no longer able to continue the battle. Regis also reminded the duel participants that killing during battle is prohibited, after which Regis announced the start of the duel. Eudelia thought that if Rui surrendered as quickly as possible, the duel would end quickly. After the announcement of the start of the duel, Eudelia took out her sword, with which she was going to defeat Rui. At first, Rui was also going to get his sword, which Rio left for him. But he remembered her words that Rui should only use his sword when there is a real threat to his life. Then Rui changes his mind about using a dragon sword in the duel, and he decided to fight the duel with his bare hands, which surprised Eudelia at first. Eudelia was already ready to strike Rui the first blow, while not forgetting to remind herself once again that she is the granddaughter of the legendary hero. After this, Eudelia ran with all her anger towards the unarmed Rui. Then Rui puts his hand forward and uses the Qigong technique, Golden Cocoon, which completely absorbed all the damage from Eudelia's blow. Eudelia was shocked by how Rui was able to deflect the blow of her sword, which can easily cut through steel. After fending off the blow, Rui says that he is neither the Demon King, nor the Dragon King, nor a hero, nor even the grandson of a hero, but that he is just an ordinary village boy. Eudelia was still shocked by how easily Rui could fend off her attack with his bare hands. The Golden Cocoon technique makes only a certain area of the wizard harder and more durable, while the Steel Cocoon technique made the entire body of the wizard hard. But at the same time, his defense was less strong than that of the Golden Cocoon. Also, the Golden Cocoon did not in any way impede the free movement of the protected limb, which made it very effective. Eudelia again tried to inflict at least some damage on Rui, but he was able to easily repel this attack. Eudelia did not understand how Rui could so easily fend off her blows because she masterfully wielded a sword. Then she decides to change her strategy to use many petal blades instead of a sword, which flew towards Rui. But despite the speed and number of these blades, Rui was able to dodge each blade without any difficulty. Then Eudelia decides to use a myriad of these blades so that they will surely hit Rui and neutralize him. The teacher thought that this was too much, and he decided to interrupt the duel, but Yuri decided to stop the teacher. Yuri drew the teacher's attention to how confident and calm Rui was behaving, which could mean that he could easily cope. Rui was surprised by how many petals were flying towards him, and he felt that he needed to use very strong magic here. Then Rui decides not to run away from the petals, but on the contrary, to run towards these petals. Then Rui makes a high jump and uses the magic technique of a wide flame, which burned all the petals flying towards him. Eudelia was in unimaginable shock at how Rui could so easily repel attacks from both sword and magic. Then Eudelia was overtaken by memories from her childhood, when she trained long and hard with her father. Her father told her about the hero's mark that no one had been able to obtain, and he told her that if she trained long and hard, sooner or later she would receive such a mark, which in turn motivated her greatly. After that, a crowd of adults appeared next to her, who were touched by her in every possible way and said that she would definitely become a hero like her grandfather. Eudelia promised that she would train all the time, and that when she grew up, she would become a real hero who would protect civilians from various threats. Having collected her thoughts, Eudelia was again about to strike Rui again. Moments before the impact, Eudelia was determined to prevent Rui from taking her place at the academy. At the moment of impact, Rui again uses the Golden Cocoon Qigong technique to once again repel the entire attack. Then Rui remembered those very moments from his life when Elena mocked him in every possible way, who believed that he had absolutely no talent in mastering magic. At this moment, Rui thought that Eudalia had also had a very hard time before, and that she had devoted all her time to training to become one of the best. Then, Rui decides to use another technique of the Qigong Golden Sword Grip technique, with the help of which he not only stops Eudalia's next attack, but also grabs the sword in his palm. Eudalia was very frightened by how Rui was able to grab her weapon so easily with his bare hands. After grabbing the sword, Rui prepared to use the next Meteor Fist Qigong technique, which greatly increased the power of his fist attacks. Eudalia considered that these were her last seconds of life and that she was unable to defeat Rui. However, Rui's fist manages to stop his fist a couple of inches from Eudalia's face, from which she is not harmed. Rui decided to convince Eudalia that the duel had ended in his favor and that they no longer needed to continue the battle. Then Eudalia was very frightened, and she began to cry, while not understanding how Rui could defeat her so easily. Rui was very frightened by Eudalia's state in which she was now. Then Rui noticed that no one was on them now, and then he decided to create a small, dark space in which no one could notice them both. Then a large black cube appeared in front of the rest of those present, through which Rui and Eudalia were not visible. After this, Rui decides to check on Eudalia's condition and try to calm her down. A little later, Eudalia noticed that everything around had disappeared, and that she and Rui found themselves completely alone in a dark room. Rui explained to Eudalia that he created a special cube that blocked all extraneous light and extraneous sounds, so that no one would see Eudalia in this form. After this, Rui immediately began to dry Eudalia, who was very frightened. Eudalia was both frightened and surprised by such concern for her, which made her very embarrassed. Eudalia decided to ask Rui why he was doing all this, despite how rudely she spoke to him. Rui just said that if someone gets into some kind of trouble, then he just goes and helps the person. Hearing this, Eudalia remembered how when she was little, she also dreamed of helping people in trouble. Eudalia thought about how she had never understood such a simple truth before. After this, she apologizes to Rui for her behavior and accepts her defeat. She also admitted that Rui is much stronger than her not only in battle and magic, but also in her soul. Rui said that Eudalia also showed her fighting skills well, and that her latest magic especially surprised him. Rui was about to remove the black cube, but Eudalia said that friends address each other as you, and that they are now friends. Rui did not object to this, and they shook hands as the black cube began to collapse. Viewers finally saw Rui and Eudalia finally escape from the large cube. After this, Eudalia told all the spectators that she was giving up and that she fully accepted Rui's victory. Everyone was shocked by such a statement from the granddaughter of the legendary hero, and Eudalia said that Rui should study at the academy instead of her. Teacher Rigus only reminded Eudalia of the promise that she must fulfill if she loses. Rui remembered Eudalia's promise to become his slave, but he said that he did not need a slave at all. Eudalia said that she would not accept the fact that Rui refused to comply with all conditions, and that she was ready to become his slave. Then Eudalia began to insist that if she lost, then she must become Rui's personal slave. After that, she grabbed Rui's hand and created a slave mark on her hand, with which Eudalia must now do whatever Rui wants her to do. Eudalia was not upset, but on the contrary, she was ready to follow all of Rui's instructions. Rui was only once again embarrassed by the fact that the granddaughter of the legendary hero had become his personal slave. After the duel, Rui and Eudalia met Yuri at the academy, who wanted to ask them about the results of their exams. Yuri said that he could not imagine before that someone from the hero's family would become someone's slave, which greatly confused and angered Eudalia. Yuri also wanted to find out from them who they are to each other now. Eudalia only said that she did not tell Rui, because she believes that if she had told him earlier that she wanted to be friends with him, he would have tried to stay away from her. Rui did not understand anything, and then Yuri decides to introduce himself to Rui as Yuri von Exodoria, who was the current prince of Escador. Rui was shocked by what he heard, since he could not even imagine that he would personally know anyone from the royal family. Then, Rui decides to address Yuri as master, to which Yuri himself said that friends should not call each other master. After this, Yuri asked Rui if he had a place to stay for the night, since from his appearance it was clear that he was not from the capital. Rui said that he did not think about it at all, because he expected to resolve such issues as they appeared. Yuri said that he would try to somehow resolve the issue of Rui's place of residence. Yuri said that Rui could spend the night with him, and that he would be well taken care of there, and therefore Rui would not have to think about paying. Then Eudalia considered Yuri's generosity too suspicious, assuming that he had some reason for this. Yuri said that now there is a large shortage of population in the capital, and if thanks to students like Rui, the academy's rating increases, then students from other countries will go to the capital. Yuri also added that if Rui studies at the academy, then Yuri will support Rui in everything. Rui thought that if Yuri helped him, it would be much easier for him to get used to it, and then it would be easier for him to find the necessary information about the hero, and after such thoughts he decides to become a student at the academy. That night Rui spent the night in Yuri's room, and the next day he was going to look for information about the hero. As soon as Rui went outside, he saw Eudalia near the entrance, who had been waiting all morning for him to come out. Rui didn't expect to see Eudalia, and she said that she just wanted to come to Rui. So that Eudalia would not think that something was wrong, he told her that he was very glad to see her, after which her offense changed to joy. After this, Eudalia invites Rui to take a walk with her, while she shows him various places. Then Rui and Eudalia walked around the capital all day, visiting various places. During the walk, Rui thought that he was now in great debt to Eudalia, and that he now wanted to free Destarossa and Rio, thereby devaluing everything that the legendary hero had done for this world. Then Rui remembered his last night with Destarossa and Rio, when he all discussed together that the hero might still be alive now. Destarossa said that since the hero was able to create a place where no one ages like the infinite, then it was quite possible for him to find a way to become virtually immortal. Then Rui said that since he locked Destarossa and Rio here, he is bad, and when he finds the hero, he will finish him off. Then Rio said that there was no way for them to kill the hero since he was too strong for anyone to defeat. Destarossa felt that the hero couldn't just attack and imprison him and Rio here, and he probably must have some compelling reasons for this. These words did not convince Rui in any way, and he still wanted to finish off the hero, since he could not just forgive him for being here. Eudalia noticed that something was wrong with Rui, to which he replied that he was fine. Then Rui came to his senses, and he decides to find out something from Eudalia about the legendary hero, and she thought that Rui was one of her grandfather's regular fans. Eudalia said that she doesn't know very much about her grandfather, since 300 years have passed since he disappeared. Then Eudalia tells Rui that despite this, she has several family items, among which were also her grandfather's things, which Rui was very interested in. One of these items was the sword Frau Zerassos, which was used by Eudalia in a duel with Rui, and which was passed down in the hero's family from generation to generation. Rui began to look at the sword and could not take his eyes off it, because while he was looking at the sword, for some reason he simply felt good in his soul. When Eudalia handed the sword into Rui's hands, the sword began to emit unusual energy, and Rui thought that the sword was filling Rui with unusual magical power. After a few seconds, Rui returned the sword back to Eudalia, after which he felt some unusual sensation from the sword. It was getting close to night, and Rui told Eudalia that it was too late to go out and that they should both go home. At first, Rui wanted to accompany Eudalia home, but she invited him to spend the night with her. Finding themselves alone with each other, Rui thanks Eudalia for such a wonderful day in order to somehow dilute the suddenly appeared situation. Eudalia supported Rui and said that she would like to spend the day together sometime. At the same time, Eudalia thought that she had a unique opportunity to make Rui her own. Eudalia remembered how many guys from her circle began to confess their feelings to her when they found out that she was the granddaughter of the legendary hero. Despite mutual interest in boys, Eudalia did not date these boys since they were much weaker than her. During all this time, Rui was the only one who was finally able to surpass her. Unexpectedly for Rui, Eudalia reminded him that she was his slave. Then Eudalia said that she could do for him whatever he wanted without any exceptions. After that, Eudalia took Rui's hand and put it to her chest. Rui remembered again that very last night when Destarossa told him that even though he loved them, he should not burden his fate. Destarossa told Rui that she and Rio loved him very much, but they would both be very happy if he found someone to love for the rest of his life. Rio said that among all races, only humans can have one partner, while male dragons can have several females at once. Destarossa said that male demons are also not limited to one individual, and aristocratic demons can have several dozen females at once. Rui remembered Destarossa's words that if he finds a person with whom he wants to connect his life, then he must act. Rio told Destarossa that she was the type who was constantly jealous, after which Rio and Destarossa started having a small quarrel again. At first, Rui thought that he started communicating with Eudalia only to learn something about the hero from her. However, after the duel and walk together, he became more and more attracted to her. Then Rui realized that Eudalia had become the very person whom he wanted to protect from danger and with whom he would live his whole life. After such thoughts, Rui decided to act, and he immediately kissed Eudalia. After a long kiss, Rui threw Eudalia onto the bed and began to take off her shirt. Rui decided not to stop at the shirt, and he decides to take off her underwear. At one point, Eudalia felt that they were rushing things too much and wanted to stop. Rui reassured Eudalia and promised her that tonight he would be as gentle as possible with her, which made her calm down a little. After that, Rui began to undress, and Eudalia was afraid that he simply would not fit in her. But Rui no longer listened to Eudalia, and he penetrated her, from which Eudalia experienced such unusual sensations for the first time. The next day, Rui and Eudalia were heading to the academy, and along the way, Eudalia kept complaining about unbearable pain. Rui suggested that she use her regeneration magic, to which Eudalia only pushed Rui and told him to think carefully about his behavior. Then Eudalia asked Rui to become her boyfriend and take full responsibility. Ultimately, Rui decided to take responsibility and agree to Elena's proposal, despite his doubts and fear of change. Of course, the girl was completely surprised by this sudden turn of events, and it made her heart beat faster than she ever expected. A stranger approached the young couple and asked a question, wondering if they were by chance applicants. With obvious confidence, the guy expressed the opinion that they were an extremely frail and defenseless couple, which prompted them to think about their vulnerability in this situation. In addition, they showed interest and asked if the girl was the granddaughter of some hero or famous person. When the stranger tried to get closer to the girl, she firmly pushed him away and warned that if he approached again, she would take extreme measures to protect herself, including even possible violence. Michael, that was the guy's name, told her with a pleading voice to refrain from such threats and hateful words. He tried to convince her of his friendliness and intention not to pose a threat. Rui suddenly felt the need to apologize to them, even though there was no clear reason for such an action. Elena felt pleasantly embarrassed to hear the guy openly express his affection for her in front of others, and her heart began to beat faster at such unexpected sincerity. Michael didn't like the situation and decided to use his magical abilities to overcome the guy and show his strength. The main character felt puzzled about the motives of Michael, who decided to use magic in the center of the city, and tried to unravel what goals could be behind this inexplicable action. Of course, he couldn't just ignore it, and decided to intervene to stop the stranger and prevent the possible consequences of his magical actions. He decided to use the stone machine gun in an attempt to stop Michael and his magical actions. This decisive action yielded results. Michael flew several meters away and lost his balance, unable to stand on his feet after the force of the stone machine gun. His comrades began to worry about him and tried to calm Michael down, showing deep regret and remorse to Rui and Elena for what happened, trying to restore peace and make everything okay. The girl agreed with a smile to the guy's proposal to move on, realizing that this episode with Michael was behind her and they could continue their adventure. Since time was not on their side, they had to move more quickly and hurry so as not to be late somewhere further along their path. So many people gathered around the building that they felt the atmosphere filled with bustle and liveliness, and they had to walk through the crowd to reach their goal. Elena asked the guy not to stand out among the crowd, warning that his enemies might start making fun of him because they were surrounded by rivals. When the main character learned that the results might be posted there, his determination did not allow him to stop, and he headed to the place, despite the girl's recommendation. He noticed that there were classes labeled A through E. The girl was sure that they were probably in Class A. As it turned out, they were indeed found in Class Z, but none of them had previously known about the existence of such a class, which added to the mystery and unpredictability of the situation. Yuri warmly greeted the couple, creating a friendly and welcoming atmosphere in this unexpected situation. Together with Yuri, there was a mysterious stranger wearing a helmet reminiscent of the helmets of knights, which gave this meeting a mysterious and fantastic touch. As it turned out, this mysterious stranger in a helmet was Yuri's escort, and his presence added even more mystery and interest to this meeting. Having completed the welcoming gesture, they exchanged brief introductions and discussed their expectations for their quest in this new and unknown class, beginning their adventure with eager excitement. The guy introduced himself as Jason and said that his main role was to protect Yuri, which gave them an understanding of the seriousness of this mission and the need for cooperation. Yuri began to reveal that he wears a helmet to hide his true identity, and he hoped that he and the main character could maintain a good relationship despite this hiding his face. Her mood did not improve, and she continued to remain in an angry mood caused by the previous incident with Michael. Yuri only wanted to see the girl. It was for this reason that he did not share information about the class with her, trying to maintain intrigue and make the meeting more mysterious. It turned out that this class is new for this school year. Previously, students were distributed according to their academic performance, but this year in Class Z, they decided to gather students with special abilities, which aroused additional interest and questions from Rui and Elena. We can say that this is a class where talented and unique individuals have gathered, creating an atmosphere of creativity and non-standard approaches to learning. If they had been graded, they would probably have been in Class A, but their performance was so outstanding that they were placed in Class Z, reserved for students with unique abilities. Based on the decision of the management, they were sent to Class Z, taking into account their abilities and potential. The girl could not understand whether Yuri was watching them, because it all looked quite suspicious and mysterious, which caused her questions and misunderstandings. For the girl, it didn't matter much whether Yuri was watching them or not, because she felt confident and calm when she was next to the guy. Her running seemed too hot, and the guy politely asked her to slow down so they could move together and enjoy the moment. Jason remained confused as to the reasons why they needed to keep an eye on the pair, which made him curious and doubtful about the purpose of this mission. It turned out that this class was populated by absolute naughty people, and even Yuri found it difficult to keep them under control and keep an eye on them. Jason believed that Rui had the necessary skills and determination to meet this challenge and successfully resolve the situation in Class Z. If Yuri hopes so much for Rui, it means that he has invested a lot of hope and trust in the guy, and now Rui must live up to those expectations. His interest knew no bounds, and he couldn't wait to find out what Class Z class was, ultimately expecting to unravel the mystery of this mysterious place. The guy and girl quickly changed their clothes and decided to go explore the class to learn more about its students and the characteristics of this unusual group. From the very beginning, they did not notice anything that could seem strange or unusual in this class. Rui's goal was to find true friends among the students in this class and build warm relationships, and he hoped that this would be possible despite their uniqueness and quirks. After recognizing the hero, they began to wonder if he was the one who won the duel during the exam, causing Rui to be slightly surprised and happy that his achievements were known. After a positive answer, their reactions seemed strange, as if they were ready to find out more details from the main character and were interested in his story in their own way. Elena showed a willingness to draw her sword and engage in battle if the situation took a more aggressive turn, expressing her readiness to defend herself and the main character. However, to everyone's surprise, the guy simply shook Roy's hand and expressed recognition, saying that the duel was very impressive and deserved praise. The guy began to express admiration and praise towards Rui, as if worshipping him and saying what a magnificent and skillful duelist he was. Jack spoke of his skills in explosive magic, causing amazement and interest among those present, and his talents made him quite a popular figure in Class Z. Behind Jack was a tall guy named Michael, and next to him was Alex. The introduction of everyone in the class became more informative and welcoming. Jack hoped that Rui would be able to make friends with them and find common ground, which was an important aspect for him and for the entire Z class. Having received such a warm greeting from the students of the class, Rui felt that his fears and worries were in vain, and he was ready for new acquaintances and adventures in this unusual class. The girls also showed support and greeted the boys with a smile, starting to get to know them and talking to them, which created a friendly atmosphere in the class. Rui was attracted to one of the students and began a conversation with interest to learn more about him and get to know him better, feeling that this class could bring him many interesting contacts and experiences. It turned out that this student was not in a friendly mood, but instead exhibited aggressive behavior and anger, which left Rui a little dumbfounded and unsure of his actions. The main characters felt bewildered, not understanding what could have gone wrong, and wondering if they might have made some mistake or bad experience that caused this student's aggression. Since Rui was from a village, he might not be aware of some of the city's customs or practices, which could explain his negative attitude and dissatisfaction. This was because it was forbidden to have slave beastmen in the capital, but in other major cities, this practice continued, which caused discontent on the part of many beastmen and created a conflict between them and ordinary people. The main character wondered if he would ever be able to become friends with this student, despite the initial tension and conflict, and he hoped that the relationship would improve. When the girl tried to tell the guy something, his attention was focused on one of the girls in the class, which caused some misunderstanding and irritation in the girl. He couldn't help but notice that she was amazingly beautiful, as if she had come straight out of a painting, and this caught his attention and piqued his interest. Slightly stuttering, Rui greeted the girl, trying to compose himself and be polite in front of her. However, he only received a cold disregard from the girl, which left his feelings a little hurt and disappointed. Elena could not stand this behavior and was amazed at how the girl dared to ignore the guy, and this caused her indignation and bewilderment. She exhibited pretentious behavior and stated that there was simply nothing to talk about with him, which caused additional irritation and bewilderment on the part of Elena and Rui. Elena was perplexed and disappointed by such an unpleasant answer, which completely contradicted their hopes for friendly communication with the students of the class. Her nerves were already gone, and she felt very irritated, ready to explode and tear the girl to pieces on the spot because of her rude and unpleasant behavior. Yuri noticed that the guy had apparently already established relationships with everyone, and also added that the teacher was already heading towards them, and they needed to quickly take their places. Yuri defiantly introduced himself again and greeted the guy, showing his friendliness and willingness to communicate, despite previous troubles. It was clear from the look of the main character that he felt satisfaction from the new class, since from that moment his life at the academy begins, and he is ready for new challenges and adventures. One day a teacher was explaining something to the children with great diligence, trying to convey important information and knowledge to them. The teacher explained that in this way, water magic uses moisture from the atmosphere to achieve its goals, sharing knowledge about magical processes with students. Rui disagreed with the teacher and said that water magic was probably also capable of controlling underground waters and water sources, expressing his own vision and understanding of magical processes. 2 weeks have already passed since they entered the academy, and the main characters have been actively studying magic and adapting to the new learning environment. Everyone present was amazed at how clearly the guy explained the material, and his ability to convey knowledge aroused admiration among students and teachers. When they returned from practice, they noticed that all the chairs were scattered around the classroom, which caused surprise and bewilderment among those present. It was very cruel, and the children could not understand who had made such a mess and scattered chairs around the classroom, causing indignation and irritation. One of the guys wanted to ask some questions and find out what happened to understand the situation better. He decided to find the one who created this mess. He is sure that he left traces or evidence that will help solve this mystery. Oscar began using magical analysis to uncover magical clues or information that could lead him to discover the villain who was causing chaos in the classroom. This is exactly what Rui expected from Oscar, relying on his magical skills to solve the mystery and find the culprit. Oscar announced that he had these magical skills thanks to the help of the guy, which caused interest and surprise among the others. Thus, he was able to develop his analysis skills and ability to analyze more than just one table. Thanks to the training and lessons that the guy gave after school, Oscar noticed a classmate's hair and shoe prints, which could be a clue to who caused the mess in the classroom. Oscar was truly impossible to fool, and his unique skills in magical analysis allowed him to reveal details that went unnoticed by others. As it turned out, the guy was expelled from the village for abusing magic, which explained his strange and hostile behavior. He rejoiced at the opportunity to use magic and realized that he could now be useful and contribute to solving the mystery of the disorder in the classroom. The guy provided information about who broke into the classroom and caused the chaos, sharing his knowledge and observations to help solve the incident. Oscar, not wanting to get involved in conflicts and fights, decided to stay away and not join the class that was probably going to look into the situation. Oscar could rely on his friend and assured him that he could cope without his help, expressing his trust and confidence in his abilities. At this time, Jack, Alex, and Michael were nearby, ready to support their friends and help if necessary. They all had one common goal: to catch the one who broke the rules and created chaos in the classroom, in order to restore order and restore calm in the academy. Jack asked the main character if he could start already, expressing his readiness to intervene and help investigate the incident. Kicking down the door, the boys burst into the classroom, ready to begin an investigation. and find the rule breaker. The boys were confident that they could win this battle and solve the mystery of the classroom incident, trusting in their skills and their own dedication. It appears that all the suspects are planning to feign innocence and hide their involvement in the incident. A stranger approached the guys, and the main character immediately felt that he had seen him somewhere before. It seemed that he was from the aristocracy or other upper class. The main character apologized for the fact that they suddenly burst into the classroom and explained that one of the hooligans in their class disrupted the lesson, and now they are trying to find the culprit and restore order. The stranger asked if it was too early to suspect them of this, expressing doubt about their assumptions about who might have disrupted the lesson. The stranger also added that in their class there are many students from disadvantaged families, and this can make it difficult to find the culprit and understand the situation. After these words, Jack became enraged and was ready to tear the stranger to pieces, feeling anger and defending the honor of his class and friends. Understandably, Rui realized that the stranger just wanted to anger them, and he began to think of a strategy on how to remain calm and investigate the incident intelligently and effectively. He asked Jack to trust him and rely on his decisions so that the investigation would go more smoothly and efficiently. The guy began to take something unknown out of his pocket, causing interest and anticipation among everyone present. The main characters carefully examined the hair that Oscar found for them in the classroom and began to analyze it, hoping to find any clues or traces of the culprit from it. The stranger inquired how Oscar was able to find out who the hair belonged to, expressing curiosity about the methods by which Oscar used his magical powers to determine the owner of the hair. The guy started talking about how they did a genetic analysis and compared the data with known samples to determine the owner of the hair. Then he decided to explain it briefly so that others would understand the analysis process. He announced that he used his ability, called Time Rewind, to analyze the genetic information and identify the owner of the hair. The stranger was clearly surprised and did not expect such an unusual outcome of events, because the return time ability was extremely rare and powerful. As it turned out, the main characters used magic that could return time, and the hair returned to its owner's head, which surprised everyone present with its unusual magical power. In other words, it turned out that this hair belonged to a stranger, and he was involved in the incident with the scattered chairs in the classroom. The stranger could not understand how this was possible, because not even all high-class magicians could use the magic of time, and this caused him surprise and bewilderment. The stranger pointed his wand at the boy, preparing to possibly use his magical powers in response to their discovery of his crime. The stranger admitted that he was going to purge and remove the main character from the class, implying perhaps some measures to expel or punish him. He warned everyone present that they should also prepare for the punishment or consequences of carrying out a purge that would cover the entire atmosphere of the class. The main character noticed that pointing magic wands without sufficient reason is contrary not only to the rules of the school, but also to the law of magic in general. The main character realized that in this situation it was more likely self-defense, and now he had no need to restrain himself. The time had come for retribution and protecting his interests. After this, classmates began to jointly develop a strategy to prevent possible negative consequences and protect themselves and their class. The man ordered everyone to shoot, calling on them to take active action in this situation. The main character noticed that people were gathering near the class, and he decided that they needed to avoid direct blows and being hit by them. Michael made the decision to take responsibility and act independently in this situation. Michael decided to use a technique known as a wall to protect himself and his comrades from attacks. Jack confessed to Michael and said that he would take further action in preparation for dealing with the situation. Jack decided to use his powerful technique, called the bomb, in order to cope with the stranger and his threats. All the wands instantly exploded in the hands of their owners, causing chaos and panic in the class. This unexpected explosion, of course, was not part of their plan, and they expected an easier victory. Now the students were absolutely sure that victory was not part of their plans. The students began discussing precautions and rules for using magic to avoid such situations. Among those present was a man who was ready to deal the strongest blow to Alex. His determination and aggression could be seen in his eyes. He was not going to allow such an easy victory for his opponent, and instead of allowing the blow, he decisively activated the power-up in his legs. Because of this unexpected reaction, the guy was unable to hit him at all. His blow was completely useless. All subsequent attempts to harm this guy also ended in failure. His incredible agility and reaction made him untouchable for his opponents. He mocked them and noticed that they were too slow and with such ease that one could even yawn without fear of anything. They were still unable to unravel his whereabouts, and he remained an inaccessible mystery to them. It was at this time that Alex suddenly appeared and delivered his decisive blow, which proved irresistible. And in addition, apparently he also overdid it and completely knocked out his opponents. And, apparently, he not only struck, but also overestimated his strength, so that the opponents were completely knocked out of action. Alex grabbed him by the throat and asked who can now be considered bad in this situation. Under Alex's influence, he began to beg for mercy and guaranteed his readiness to fulfill any request. However, the condition was that he would have to obey not only the guy, but also everyone else, following their orders. The main character is ready to strike the decisive blow in this epic battle. The blow was so devastating that the man turned and fell to the ground, groaning in pain while his opponents were left amazed by the hero's might. The blow was so powerful that he simply pierced the wall with his body, leaving a huge hole in it and causing shock among all witnesses. Such a spectacle looked incredibly impressive and epic, forcing everyone around to applaud the hero. The hero's friends were proud to have been part of this incredible victory and to have witnessed his valor. They then raised their hands to each other to symbolize and strengthen their friendship and unity. However, when Yuri learned about the boys' feat, he was overcome with rage, and he clearly did not approve of their action, not being proud of them. Jack was busy cleaning, and this was not his first endeavor in this matter. Inside himself, he admitted that it was his own fault that things had reached this extent. Yuri tormented himself with self-recrimination for simply not being able to follow them. Their promise to not allow such situations to happen again calmed them down, and they felt the obsession release from their souls. Then the main character approached Yuri and sincerely apologized, realizing that he probably suffered because of their actions. He honestly admitted that from the very beginning, when he decided to take this step, he expected that such situations would happen quite often. Yuri's voice was very tired, as if the echo of a long and restless day. Since he was still dealing with their actions, he was unable to get a good night's sleep. Rui felt incredibly uneasy and uncomfortable as he realized that his actions had led to this situation, and now his relationship with his friend had become strained and uncomfortable. At this time, the main character noticed that everyone around him continued to train, and his own experiences seemed small compared to their determination and diligence. And inspired by their determination, he also decided to go for a walk in order to relax a little and take his mind off the unpleasant situation. Leaving the class, the main character noticed how a stranger, with a smile on his face, approached him and greeted him cordially. This unexpected gesture of goodwill bathed him in a magical light, dispelling the tension that had been hanging on behind him after an unpleasant situation. The stranger, showing interest, asked if the main character was Roy. Having apologized to the guy for his sudden appearance, the main character tried to explain that his new mood and desire to talk were the result of recent events. As it turned out, the guy's name was Madison and he was in class 2A, which added a new dimension to their meeting. The main character warmly shook the stranger's hand, expressing his respect for him and showing his readiness for friendly communication. Madison was just curious about what Rui looked like since there were rumors about him and he wanted to see the guy in person. And oddly enough, these rumors turned out to be related to yesterday's incident that everyone was talking about. Madison suddenly began to approach Rui, as if they had found a common language, and their conversation became more frank and friendly. Madison felt ready to tell Roy something important and personal. With a look of trust, he made it clear that he had a story to share with him, and Rui was ready to listen. Rui listened carefully to Madison, and realized that even he, being strong, realized that in this world, there will always be people even more powerful and terrible than himself. And at that time, the main character was worried about his charisma and ability to impress others. Rui sincerely and heartily thanked Madison for his honesty and warning about the powerful and scary people in this world. He felt that his new friend truly cared about his well-being and safety. However, within himself, he was well aware that there were at least two people whose power and influence exceeded his. Madison decided that he probably shouldn't have worried then, since meeting such people was unlikely, and he preferred to focus on what he had now. He then began to say goodbye and announced that it was time for him to go, leaving Rui with the thought that their meeting was unexpected and interesting. The main character noticed that Madison was indeed a very mysterious person, and his short meeting left a mystery in his soul. And suddenly, as if in a hurry somewhere, Madison began to say goodbye and leave the meeting place, leaving Rui with a feeling of unexplained mysteries and secrets. Rui's gaze revealed many secrets and mysteries that he may yet have to reveal. Arriving home, Rui immediately collapsed on his bed and realized that he was extremely tired after a hard day. Rui was so physically and emotionally exhausted that it was clearly a consequence of their long and tedious labor to restore the class that had been damaged. He was proud to realize that he had worked hard despite the challenges and was able to rebuild the class on his own, which filled his day with a sense of satisfaction and achievement. Rui woke up and looked around puzzled, having difficulty discerning whether it was already morning or still twilight. With a deep sense of confusion and bewilderment, Rui realized that he was surrounded by an unknown space and was away from his familiar surroundings, which caused him to feel a mixture of anxiety and surprise. However, he was sure that even if this place seemed endless and incomprehensible, his little sister and Rio would always come to the rescue and support him. Suddenly, he realized that he felt nothing, and doubts that this place could be an endless hell came over him. The girl behind her suddenly walked up to Rui and gently asked him to remain calm, as if sensing his anxiety and helplessness. She confirmed his words that this was indeed the same endless hell in which they were. Inviting Rui to sit at the table, she told him that they needed to talk and try to figure out this strange situation in which they found themselves. The guy felt a slight awkward tension and indecision sitting at the table in this mysterious environment. Before drinking the tea that was offered to him, he wondered a little whether it was worth doing this, because the situation remained unclear and mysterious. Despite his initial doubts, Rui was pleasantly surprised to discover the exquisite taste of the tea and the warmth that enveloped him after the first sip. With a cup of tea in his hands, he couldn't help but question her identity and how they related to this strange situation. As it turned out, her name was Chris, and she was assigned to manage this endless hell, which added mystery and intrigue to their meeting. After such words, the main character instantly stood up, ready to defend, feeling an unexpected surge of tension and danger. However, she again asked him to calm down and assured him that she was not an enemy and her intentions were good. Mixed feelings of uncertainty and anxiety remained in his heart, and he felt that he needed a clearer explanation of his role and purpose in this strange reality. It turned out that the reason was quite simple. The main character accidentally removed the seal from Endless Hell. This happened because in the real world, he received an item from the hero, thanks to which the seal guarding the Endless Hell was removed. It is clear that the guy was shocked by what he heard, because he had just found out that he had accidentally released Endless Hell, and this was a shock for him. Remembering the moment when he supported Charlotte's sword and felt some kind of power from it, it became clear to him that it was at that moment that the seal was removed, revealing Endless Hell. He learned that if he collects all the hero's items, the seal on Endless Hell will be completely removed, and he will be able to return to the real world. Rui began to think that a joint effort with Charlotte could be more effective and safer than a solo search for an unknown hero whose fate he knew nothing about. He was confused, wondering why the girl who seemingly ran this place was willing to reveal information to him about how to unseal the Endless Hell. Chris admitted that the goal of Endless Hell has already been achieved, and now it seems strange to her that this hell still exists, and she decided to help Rui to rectify the situation. The guy was completely bewildered and could not understand what exactly the girl was talking about, since the information about the purpose of Endless Hell was unexpected for him. Rui felt even more confused and unsure of what was happening after learning that the girl had no right to reveal information about the purpose of the Endless Hell, and he began to realize that the whole situation was actually much more complex and mysterious than it initially seemed. After sincerely asking for his forgiveness, the girl tried to explain that she was not allowed to reveal details related to the purpose of the Endless Hell, and that she was ready to help him find the answers together. The girl explained that the main character is not here physically, and that is why he will be able to return to the real world when he collects all the hero's items and removes the seal. It turned out that he was called to this world so that he could gain the experience and skills necessary to complete the task of collecting the hero's items and breaking the seal from the Endless Hell. Thus, Rui began to understand that his role in this world became more clear, and he was ready to take on the challenge and help Chris achieve this goal, since he had the opportunity to gain the skills and experience that would be needed to complete this important task. Concentrating, Rui tried to think about swords, and to his surprise, he saw swords appear in front of him, ready to use. It was an indescribable feeling of power and control over the world around him. Chris, not wanting to waste time, decisively announced that they would begin training, and Rui was ready to begin learning and using his new swords. Under the influence of unknown forces, he instantly dodged the blow without any apparent explanation, causing surprise and admiration both for himself and for Chris, who realized that Rui had unique abilities. He was amazed by this event, as his head literally almost flew off from his amazing dodging of a blow. At the very last stage of the training, she warned that if he died in this world, he would never wake up in reality, and this gave the whole situation seriousness and importance. Chris reminded that everything they were going through was just training, and that Rui still had an exam that would test his abilities and readiness. Rui couldn't help but notice that the girl, despite her gender, was extremely strong and masterfully wielded a sword, which earned him respect and admiration. Chris noticed that the main character didn't seem to be taught how to use a sword, and decided that they had a lot of work to do to overcome this deficiency and achieve success. He may not have had any experience, but the guy already had some techniques that were taught to him, and he was ready to use them in battle. He used the shine technique to create an instant flash of light, blinding his opponent and giving him an advantage in battle. However, from the expression on the girl's face, it was impossible to determine that she was alarmed by this reception, and she remained calm and decisive. Rui realized that he must use his intelligence and techniques to make up for the speed gap and be more effective in battle. Under the pressure of struggle and stress, his nerves could not stand it, and he decided to use his super enhancement to increase his abilities and chances of winning. Using his super boost, he unleashed a powerful blow, putting all his strength into it, in an attempt to turn the tide of the battle in his favor. Rui's strength and determination impressed even Chris, and the battle became much more intense and interesting as both fighters fought for the top hand. Using his magical body, the protagonist gained additional strength and agility, which made his attacks more powerful and threatening, and he continued to fight with Chris, who also fought back. With this powerful blow, Rui was able to establish his dominance in the battle and highlight his unique abilities. Chris, despite her strength, was forced to succumb to the guy's power. Realizing that further struggle was pointless, the girl asked to stop, and realized that Rui's strength lay in the fact that he was not limited to a certain form and was able to adapt to the situation. Chris, despite her defeat, quickly reacted and used her shield to deflect the guy's attack and protect herself from the consequences of the powerful blow. The main character continued to demonstrate his unique ability of adaptation and magical power, which allowed him to overcome obstacles and achieve success in battle. Chris recognized his incredible skills and decided that she should find out more about this mysterious guy. Gathering his last remnants of strength and determination, Rui prepared for the final blow, knowing that it would decide the outcome of the battle. For some unknown reason, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head and began to faint, which caused alarm and bewilderment in both him and Chris. They were only a couple of moments ahead, and he could have defeated the girl, but sudden frostbite stopped him on the path to victory, and he was left bewildered and with a pain in his head. Chris, however, had no intention of killing him, and his little body did its job to protect him at the moment when he was in trouble. Sakura, symbolizing beauty and renewal, could become a sign of hope and a bright future for a guy who has gone through many difficulties and trials. Chris understood that she relied on the main character because the fate of the world was in his hands, and she believed that he could cope with the difficult task that lay before them. When the guy woke up, he felt that his whole body was in great pain, probably from the effects of intense training and fighting in an endless hell. Rui noticed that there were no wounds on his body, and he began to realize that perhaps he had never physically been to the endless hell, and this was all happening in another dimension or state. The dimension cut was explained as an advanced technology mixing magic and qigong. When this technology is combined with the dimension cut, a true dimension cut is created that could explain everything that happened in the infinite hell. With an opponent who is his equal in strength, Rui realized that even if he doesn't have a weapon, he can use magic to fill in the gaps in his technique and swordsmanship, making him stronger in battle. Rui had doubts that a girl might be better than him in combat or with a sword, and this could cause some self-doubt. By focusing on training with the ball, he realized that this was the way to improve his technique and skills, and he was ready to learn and develop to become better. The inner fire and determination burned within him, and he was ready for hard work. The next day, when the boy arrived at school, He was immediately welcomed and felt part of the community, preparing for new challenges and adventures. They all had nothing special to do during recess, and they decided to spend this time in a friendly conversation, discussing past events and future plans. Rui looked into the distance. His gaze rushed into the endless expanses, and suddenly his attention was attracted by the presence of someone who had already arrived. Yuri's same bodyguard, whose job it was to ensure the safety of his boss, felt surprised when the young man expressed his need for his help. With bitter sincerity in his voice, he told how he was once again kicked out of the place where he had found temporary refuge. Striving for self-improvement, the main character expressed a desire for that same bodyguard to teach him the art of wielding a sword. To improve the effectiveness of his training, he decided to turn to Charlotte, asking for help. In this chaotic duel, where Charlotte attacked with a sword and the guy tried to defend himself, the main character felt an urgent need to learn both attack and defense in order to become a true master of the sword. With pride and determination in his eyes, the guy admitted that he would pass on the ancestral technique known as the King's Defense Sword. Thus began an exchange of knowledge and skills, where the protagonist became Charlotte's teacher in the art of magic, while she became his mentor in the art of the sword. This union promised them not only power and skill, but also strengthening friendship and mutual respect. He silently watched as those around him strived for excellence, and could not help but notice that their zeal began to influence him, instilling his own share of inspiration and desire for self-development. Of course, Rui happily accepted this dynamic atmosphere, and most likely wanted to become stronger by accepting the influence of others into his character and improving with them. Thus, they decided to apply their efforts moderately, moving towards their goals and excellence together, supporting each other along this important path. The main character lent his support to the guy in his aspirations and endeavors, standing next to him, ready to help and inspire him to achieve his goals. After some time, the main character again found himself in endless hell, where he continued his training, striving for perfection. This time his outlook was more confident, and he approached his training with more determination and self-confidence. This visible progress in his efforts encouraged not only him, but also those around him, including the girl. Their faith in his abilities became even stronger, and they continued to support him in his path to excellence. He became much better and was even able to injure a girl, which was a clear indication of his improvement and the growth of his fighting skills. She noticed that he had begun to train, and realized that his persistence and determination in the process had not gone unnoticed. The main character openly admitted that he has many teachers, and he is taught by guys who have outstanding sword skills. Chris noticed that he was serious and realized that his desire to excel and achieve his goals was a real priority for him. Rui asked why his sister and Rio were not in the endless hell, expressing his concern over her absence. She began to explain that she and he were on different floors of endless hell, separating them in this world but remaining in contact. This knowledge about the second floor aroused his keen interest and desire to explore this unexplored area of infinite hell in order to learn more and perhaps meet his sister and Rio on a new level of this mysterious world. The girl was forbidden to say who exactly was on the second floor, and this rule added even more mystery and intrigue to their communication with Rui. The main character was a little upset after these words, since the hope of meeting his sister and Rio was overshadowed by the ban on disclosing information about them. Chris admitted that it looks like the guy in his world actually met the granddaughter of the main character, which caused surprise and joy among everyone. It turned out that it was Charlotte, and the main character admitted that they were friends, which added new threads of connection and understanding between them. At first she resented him, but after a duel between them, their relationship changed dramatically and she began to see him as a true friend and ally. It turns out that she is actually very lonely and strives to become stronger not only for herself, but for the sake of others. And this additional point added even more depth to the exploration of her character and motivation. Chris was sure that she lived happily, but at the same time it was important for her to share this joy and happiness with others, so she strived to become stronger and more useful to others. The guy admitted that she also helps him with her life activities, and their interaction turned out to be mutually inspiring, because they supported each other in finding their own strength and the meaning of life. Since 6 hours have already passed and the guy has started to become transparent, they will have to say goodbye soon, leaving behind important lessons and inspiration for future endeavors. Before he left, Chris stopped him to express her gratitude and promised to continue her journey to excellence in his absence. She asked him to beware of the Genesis sect and to be vigilant, warning him against potential dangers along his path. The girl couldn't tell him the details, but she assured him that when he solved the mysteries of the endless hell, he would definitely have to contact her and find out more about the Genesis sect. She stressed that he must be vigilant and careful. Otherwise, he risked being left with nothing when he revealed the secrets of the endless hell and the Genesis sect. After this important information, the guy began his journey back to his world, with the hope of future contact and a deeper understanding of the endless hell and its secrets. It was clear from the girl's facial expression that she was sincerely worried about the guy, and her concern was a reflection of their strengthened connections and friendship. At this time, a change came, and the guy and the girl, leaving hope and a promise to meet again in their hearts, separated for a while to continue their studies and adventures in their worlds. The main character was very bored without her, and he felt that in her absence, something important and special had left his life. Since Charlotte was busy, he needed to arrange for someone to hang out and go out to relieve his boredom and loneliness. He, feeling hungry, decided to go somewhere to eat to quench his appetite and spend time usefully. At this time, he heard that a showdown was taking place somewhere in the vicinity, and this made him be vigilant and cautious before going further. The main character immediately decided to get closer and find out what the problem was, ready to offer his help if needed. At this time, it turned out that the same angry guy from class was arguing with someone, and the situation looked tense and potentially dangerous. However, it turned out that it was Wolf, and the main character was familiar with his difficult character and tendency to conflict. The main character approached Wolf and asked what happened, showing interest in what caused the argument and conflict. The guy was asked to talk to his classmate, since he was closer to Wolf and might be able to calm the situation and find out what happened, since it was difficult to get information from Wolf due to his anger. The atmosphere was very tense, and everyone around felt angry and dissatisfied, which created an unpleasant environment. After the man said that it was precisely because of such aggression that he hated the sphere of people, the guy flared up in rage, as this hurt him and caused a wave of emotions. Rui intervened in the conversation and asked what had happened, revealing an interest in the conflict and a desire to resolve the situation. A classmate was accused of stealing goods from a man, and this became the cause of disagreement and conflict. The guy asked me to tell him, at least in general terms, what exactly happened in order to understand the situation and possibly help resolve the conflict. The man began to say that a thief had entered his store, and he was sure that a classmate had stolen his goods, prompting these accusations. After he left, it became clear that the store window had been broken, adding an additional element of mystery to the situation. Immediately after calling the police, he himself decided to start a search, and his classmate actually had his stolen goods, which led to the resolution of the conflict and the restoration of justice. But the man didn't believe the guy could have done it alone, and was confident he had help, leaving doubts about how exactly the item was returned. He wondered if this could really have been done by the guy alone or if there were some hidden aspects to the story that he hadn't noticed. The boy often heard that beastmen were accused without good reason, and this made him worried that he might be caught and accused without providing evidence of his innocence. Then the main character decided that he would find the real thief in order to clear his name and provide evidence of his innocence, promoting justice in this difficult situation. However, these words did little to calm everyone down, and the tense atmosphere remained unchanged, highlighting the complexity of the situation. Rui asked if this classmate was running fast, trying to find some evidence that could confirm or refute his guilt. Then the main character decided to use magic to help solve this mysterious situation and find the real thief. He decided to use the smoke veil to create confusion and try to hide, perhaps giving himself extra time to think and act. It is clear that they immediately disappeared from the man's line of sight, leaving him in panic and bewilderment. They tried to leave the danger zone, and Rui led the guy towards safety to warn him about the possible consequences of theft and conflict. And the man could only think about where his classmates could have disappeared, leaving him in a state of confusion and unresolved questions. The man was understandably furious after such an act, and his feelings were so agitated that he could make rash decisions in an attempt to unravel this mysterious situation. He immediately began to get angry at the men standing next to him, because they could not prevent and did not see how his classmates ran away, which only increased his anger and disappointment. They could not understand what to do now. Faced with growing chaos and unexpected developments, they decided that they just needed to ask the Academy for help, how to seek help from competent persons to solve riddles and solve difficult situations. One of them had to go ask for help, while the second began a search to deal with the situation as effectively as possible. All this time, classmates sat on the roof and watched everything that was happening, remaining in a safe place so as not to get into the center of the conflict. At such a dizzying pace, the protagonist, like an arrow, might even attract the attention of a local group of knights, whose determination to hunt him would only increase the tense situation in which he finds himself. The guy did not fall into pessimism. On the contrary, his determination was at its best, and he strove to find the criminal as quickly as possible, filling himself with determination and hope. Wolf felt a little wary about this whole situation. He could not understand why the main characters got involved in this adventure, and a certainty arose in his mind that the mysterious individual they encountered was hiding some mysterious intentions. But the guy tirelessly and persistently began to convince Wolf of the opposite, revealing his motives and conviction that this adventure would lead to solving important mysteries and saving many lives. Since he considered his classmate his true friend, he decided to assist him in this difficult matter. The guy's reaction was extremely stunning, since he did not expect to hear such words at all and felt sincere gratitude. He could not understand how this happened, because every day he growled at him and expressed his dissatisfaction, and now they showed gratitude to him and were ready to help. However, he still couldn't figure out what the guy's true goal was. The main character, sharing his plan, invited his partner to go to where he discovered the mysterious bottle, assuring that this could give rise to new discoveries and reveal the key mysteries of this fascinating story. However, when they arrived at the indicated place, they discovered that there were no traces or evidence left there. The guide turned to the company with an enthusiastic look and politely asked to give him this beautifully decorated bottle of wine for a while, as if he had an important plan. After receiving the bottle, he began to use magical analysis, blindingly revealing its origin and centuries-old history, as if opening a gateway to unknown worlds. The main character enthusiastically admitted that the secrets of this magic were passed on to him by a close friend, whose wisdom came from ancient texts and mystical knowledge. Despite his passion and effort, he realized that his mastery of magic had not yet reached the heights his friend had reached, and that he still had a lot of study and practice ahead of him. The main character, through the magical atmosphere, suddenly explored something and broke the silence, inviting the assembled company to go somewhere, as if expecting an important discovery or adventure. Without explaining a word to his friend, he resolutely continued to run away, as if rushing towards something urgent, leaving him bewildered and intrigued. Wolf, carefully watching what was happening, noticed that Rui was moving at such a speed that seemed inhuman, which caused his surprise and suspicion of his friend's mysterious abilities. After these words from Wolf, the main character accelerated even more, as if embodying strength and energy that defied explanation, and pushed him towards an unknown goal. After some time, as if called by an incredible force, they found themselves in place, as if they had overcome time and space, waiting for what would open before them in this mysterious location. The footprints they noticed led inside the building, as if inviting them to explore the secrets hidden within its hideout. After some thought, the guy decided that in this situation, it was better to return the bottle, because he felt that the upcoming exploration of this mysterious place could take a lot of time and effort. Wolf, stunned by the development of events, could not understand whether this was the very barn they were looking for, or whether another mystery had opened up before them. The main character couldn't wait to get inside, as if his heart was beating in unison with the secrets hiding behind these doors, and he was eager to reveal their secrets. In the midst of their intriguing exploration, Charlotte, who had been searching for them all this time without success, suddenly appeared, disrupting their moment of excitement and solving the mysteries. She admitted that she had come here for their own sake, expressing deep care and concern for their safety, and wanted to be there to help and support them in their adventures. The girl said that she used magical power to search for their traces, as if contacting the outside world in order to find friends and be there in difficult moments. True, using magical power was not an easy task for her, and she admitted that it took a lot of effort to find them in this mysterious location. Finding themselves in this unusual situation before her, They instantly thought that Charlotte had come, perhaps with the purpose of catching them or returning them to the path of safety. They breathed a sigh of relief when they received a positive response from Charlotte, realizing that she was not opposing them, but on the contrary, wanted to help and support them on this mysterious journey. Today she was invited to the royal palace to be an instructor in magic for the warriors. Then suddenly a request came in to find them. These words clearly upset the protagonist, crushing his hopes and leaving him in a state of disappointment and misunderstanding. Wolf, not ready to give in to Charlotte so easily, felt an inner rebellion and determination to continue the research, despite all the difficulties and disappointments. However, from the girl's reaction, it was clear that she was not very serious about catching them, and perhaps even shared their desire to explore this mysterious location. Then she suddenly decided to help them completely, as if changing her original intentions, and they felt a surge of relief and support from Charlotte. After her decision to help, the main character hugged his friend tightly, feeling deep gratitude and joy that they could explore this mysterious world together. She was very embarrassed by this unexpected hug, but at the same time she felt in it the warmth and support that she had needed for a long time. Wolf decided to attract attention and began to talk animatedly, as if trying to diffuse the atmosphere and involve everyone in conversation to alleviate the awkwardness of the moment. He could not understand why the girl decided to help them, because she was the granddaughter of a hero and her valor could suffer if she continued to help such a beastman. She asked them not to consider his words nonsense, explaining that on the contrary, abandoning people in trouble hurts her valor, and her decision to help does not depend on how he is in her eyes. The guy did not hide the fact that he was slightly stunned by these words, feeling how the internal conflict began to dissipate, and he received support and understanding from an unexpected ally. It is not clear for what reason, but she suddenly took up her sword, as if preparing for something that might require her protection, and they were again enveloped in mystery and uncertainty. Then, feeling the growing tension, they decided to quickly end the situation, realizing that they had many challenges and mysteries ahead, and time was an important resource. Having opened the doors, they were stunned by what they saw, as if a world of wonders and secrets had opened up before them, and they were ready for new adventures and discoveries. There were a lot of expensive things there, impressive both in their wealth and elegance, as if they had entered a treasury that they had never even dreamed of. And inside it turned out to be even more spacious than Charlotte had thought. She appreciated the enormous possibilities hidden inside this place. By all appearances, the man inside was involved in shady dealings, and the guy was sure that many of the items here were stolen or acquired by dishonest means. Most likely, it was a secret warehouse of a group of thieves, where they stored looted treasures and valuables, and they found themselves in the very center of secret criminal machinations. The main character was sure that it was better to quickly inform the knights or other servants of the law about what they had discovered in order to prevent further criminal acts and restore order. And immediately after these words, gun barrels were pointed at them. They were suddenly surrounded by a threatening aura, and they realized that the situation had become even more complex and dangerous. They were surrounded by several dozen people, creating an atmosphere full of tension and hostility, and they found themselves in a conflict zone where choices and actions became decisive. A man approached them and asked if they were lost, as if trying to bring clarity to a difficult situation, and they felt a slight sense of relief, although they did not quite understand what was happening. His name was Ghoul, and he found himself the leader of this gang, managing all these people in the situation, and they realized that they were now dealing with an important player in this mysterious incident. According to their impressions, he is a fairly authoritative figure in the world of crime, which emphasized the seriousness of the situation and the need for caution in dealing with him. For some reason, the guy had doubts that this man was really the leader of the thieves, perhaps due to his unusual appearance or behavior, and this added to the mystery of the situation. He made good money from thefts, but the main character was determined not to let him make money from all this stolen property and believed that justice must prevail. He was determined to stop the thief and put an end to his illegal activities, even if it meant confronting an authority figure in the world of crime. The man suddenly felt that he seemed to have seen the main character somewhere, and his look at the young man became full of suspicion and bewilderment. Then, as if revealing some secret, he said that he was very lucky to see this young man, and his words aroused surprise and questions from everyone present. He did not think that his goal would come to him on its own, and his attitude towards the main character became even more mysterious, leaving many unanswered questions in the air. Charlotte resolutely drew her sword and took a stance, preparing to defend herself, her determination clear despite the difficulty of the situation. Wolf was very angry that the man had stolen goods from the souvenir shops, which could expose him to suspicion and hostility from the locals, and he strongly expressed his indignation. The man couldn't even remember which gift shop he stole from, and his incredible carelessness and oversight added to the mystery of the situation. He did not deny that one of his subordinates seemed to have stolen something from there, and did not see a huge problem in this. Then he began to mock and show where all this goods were. After these words, the guy now definitely won't forgive them and will tear them to pieces on the spot. The man realized that the guy seemed to have gotten it for this act. Taunting him, he offered to become his master as an apology. Wolf was shocked by this proposal and was already at the peak of his rage. He began to explain that he actually had one rich suitor for the guy. People quickly break down psychologically, so they are short-lived. Wolf's nerves could not stand it, and he was ready to tear everyone and everything to pieces. But the main character stopped him in time, and thereby prevented a fight. He was sure that they simply wanted to anger him, and he should not give in to it. He asked Charlotte to shut up because she was looking down on him. The guy asked him not to think about it because they don't think so. He's just talking nonsense. These words also slightly struck Wolf because he had apparently never heard such a thing before. After that, he really calmed down a little and came to his senses. The main character hoped that the guy had learned his lesson and understood everything. Wolf's gaze switched to Rui's bloody fist. He admitted that he would repay the man for insulting his friend. The man ordered his subordinates to deal with the guy because he sees him as a huge problem. The excitement for the fight lit up in their eyes. In addition, the man asked not to hit Rui in the face, thereby mocking him. The man realized that if he sold it to perverts who loved cute boys, they would pay a lot for it. It sounded disgusting. But after some time, the man's gaze changed very sharply. He was scared. His subordinate's fingers were broken in every possible way. The main character used a technique called golden shell and also finger removal.
Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe.